Breaking news tonight, live, rural Oregon. Stepmommy walks her 7-year-old down the hall of his elementary school. He's never seen again. Police now insisting stepmommy take a second polygraph. And in a bizarre twist, we learned stepmommy sending X-rated photos to a lover just days after Kyron disappears. Despite all of this, still no sign of 7-year-old Kyron Horman. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
What started as another school morning soon turned into a nightmare for parents of 7-year-old Kyron Horman, who inexplicably vanished from a school science fair. A suspicious drive, an alleged accomplice, and a murder-for-hire plot. Where is little Kyron Horman?
This is a question that has gone through our minds and hearts over and over and over. Joining me, an all-star panel to make sense of what we're learning about Kyron's disappearance. But first, I want to go to a very special guest. Kyron's father is joining us, Kaine Horman. Kaine, thank you for being with us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Kaine, I know you have been asked this before, specifically by police and many, many other law enforcement. But could you go back to the day that when you learned Kyron has disappeared, just 7 years old at the time?
Yeah, I was at work that day and came home after. I was in the office and went to walk down to the bus stop that's down our driveway and went down to meet him when he gets off the bus, something we do pretty much on every day. And the bus came down and the door opened and the bus driver looked at us a little bit puzzled and had mentioned that he was not on the bus. And that came as a shock. And we talked to her for a few minutes, at which time we ran back up to the house and got in the car and went up to the school to try to find out what was happening while we were making phone calls on the way. So it was a very shocking situation at that point in time. And then went to the school, talked to the teachers and faculty up there, placed the call to 911, and that's when the sheriff's office got involved and just kind of evolved from there.
I'm just thinking about that trip, that frantic drive that you made to the school. Kaine, I'm projecting. I remember I was in New York and I had just gotten the children bathed and in their pajamas and called home and found out my dad was on life support. Within about 15 minutes, we were out on the street trying to hail a cab to hopefully get a flight home. That trek, trying to get home, trying to get somewhere to get to my dad. Will you describe those moments where you are frantically on the phone, you're driving, you're trying to get your facts together and find out everything you can? What was going through your mind? What happened on that trip back to the school?
Well, it was just a very, I don't know that I have a good description of it, very visceral panic. Nothing, I mean, sheer panic. The one thing or it's one of the top things I think most parents fear is their children going missing. You want to protect them. You want to be able to know where they are at all times. And I was just panicked. It was just terror. I don't remember much else. I remember I think what I've, learned since then about trauma response. I think that it was in just full trauma mode at that point in time. Everything just looked different. The scenery looked different on the drive up there. Just everything racing through my mind of, all the different scenarios that could play out. But it was, honestly, it was terror. I couldn't even really explain the thoughts at that point. It was sheer panic.
Another thing, Kaine Horman, guys, joining us is Kyron's dad, Kaine. Many people would say, and it's not their fault, they just haven't lived through it. Well, it's no big deal that he's not on the bus, because what if he stayed on the playground and was playing and the bus left without him? What if he stayed in one of the rooms and was doing an extra assignment? There's something called routine evidence, evidence of routine. Every day, I pick up my children at a certain spot at school. If they're not there, there's a problem. It would be, for instance, if everybody got together and came here and it's time to get hooked up to you and no Nancy. That has never happened. It means something. It's significant. How did you know? Here and here, in your head and your heart, when he did not get off that bus, when those doors swung open, how did you know instinctively something was very wrong? It wasn't just playing on the playground or staying in a classroom.
Yeah, that's exactly how you describe it. The bus comes, he gets off every day. There's been, a lot of discussion around, whether or not he was at school still, or other things, and he just very routine, like you said. I don't know that we had a situation where he ever missed the bus up until then. I don't recall him, being on the playground or in the classroom without us knowing about it. And I think that's the main thing. Is usually, I think, in a lot of those circumstances, if there's something after school, you're usually notified. And the school's usually really good about doing that. So it was just an immediate response that something's definitely off, because we either would have heard or he'd be stepping off those bus steps right now. So exactly what you described. It was pretty much like clockwork every day. And that was just the one day that it wasn't.
Kaine, when you got to the school, what happened when you got there?
I remember trying to locate teachers. The three of us were up there. So we were trying to locate and ask questions about, where he was at, if he was still there, kind of the things that we just talked about. Just getting a rundown. And they had indicated that he was not there that day, that he had been absent from school from basically the beginning of the day, which then was an additional shock.
Oh, my stars. That just makes my stomach hurt. Your whole day, you're going about your business, you're working, you're this, you're that, you're making calls, you're sending emails. The whole time you think he's fine at school, and he was not there. He was not checked in.
Right. Yep.
When you say the three of you, I can just imagine getting to the school. It's still kind of drop off, pick up. Everything's going crazy. And you rushing in probably to the office going, where's Kyron? Where is he? Where is he? I can't find him. He didn't get off the bus. And then you learn he wasn't checked in even to his very first class. You said the three of you. Who was with you?
His stepmom and my daughter.
Okay. Let me think this through. You get to the school, and who was it that told you? He was never even here.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember. I know we had started talking to somebody, and then more people kind of gathered around in the conversation, but I don't recall who we talked to first, honestly.
Everybody, take a look at Kyron Horman, just 7 years old at the time he goes missing. Everybody thinks he is at school that day, but he's not. What happened that morning?
Skyline Elementary School in Northwest Portland, Oregon is having their annual science fair, so the school is opened about 30 minutes earlier than normal to allow for parents and students to see the different projects created by the students. Arriving at Skyline just after 8 a.m., Kyron Horman and his stepmother, Terry Horman, go to his classroom to drop off his coat and backpack. Kyron then shows his stepmother his exhibit called The Red-Eyed Tree Frog.
And you're looking at it. So he was at school. Look at this. Kyron Horman at school. There he is with his project he worked so hard on. It's quite elaborate. The red-eyed tree frog. Look at all the things surrounding him. Can you imagine how hard he worked on that? And he was there. Annette Newell joining us, KXL News, host of Speaking Freely with Annette Newell. Annette, thank you for being with us. Annette, there's no question he was at school for this preschool science fair. Now, interesting, a lot of times we don't have that distinction. This was all happening before first period, before he goes into his homeroom teacher, was this science fair. Explain.
Yeah, that was an event in which there were a lot of people who came from throughout the community, and there wasn't a lot of what you would say supervision. There were people coming in and out because there was a science fair, and the adults who were coming in weren't really being monitored very much.
Kaine Horman with me, Kyron's dad. So that was kind of a big morning for him, taking in the big science project. I know when we have that with our twins, it's a big ordeal trying to get everything there. Don't leave anything behind. Don't crush it or hurt it on the way to school. How was that morning before he left for school? Was anything at all unusual?
No, not from my perspective. We had talked that morning before he went up to the school and before I went to work. We talked outside. He came out with me to the car before I got in and left. I told him that I loved him, to have a wonderful day at the exposition, and that I would see him after work and we'd talk all about it. So it was just another pretty much normal day.
What more do we know about what happened at the school that morning? Listen.
Terry Horman has raised Kyron since he was an infant, and she takes a picture of Kyron standing in front of his project, posting the photo on Facebook. The two walk around the classes looking at other students' projects and see many other parents and children who have arrived early for the science fair. Terry Horman volunteers her time helping Kyron's teacher, Christina Porter, and Porter sees Kyron and Terry Horman in Kyron's classroom that morning, and another teacher sees Kyron and Terry in another classroom before the 8:45 a.m. school bell rings.
Kaine Horman, explain to me your understanding of what happened that morning at the Science Expo and how many times he was sighted. I mean, I see the picture. I know he was there, but now I'm hearing he was in another classroom. What's your understanding of his movements that morning?
Yeah, so based on what I understand, again, this is what I remember being told, that they arrived at the school, that they went to the classroom where his project was on display. That's the photo that we've all seen already with him standing in front. I did see that photo later that day on our camera as well. There was a couple other pictures of other things in the room from what I remember. So they did look at some other projects in the room, again, from what I recall. And then there was a description of them walking to other classrooms and looking at other projects in those rooms. I don't remember. I don't recall which teacher it was that they went into. I think they went into multiple rooms from what I remember and what I was told. And then there was a discussion about them parting ways up in the hall by the office. And he supposedly walked down the hall back towards his classroom, and she left the building. Again, according to what I was told, I don't know for a fact what happened, but that's what I remember as the kind of the described overview of what happened there. And again, I did see photos of the classroom and a few others, but that's what I remember.
Okay, I'm understanding something really for the first time. This expo wasn't in one big room like the gymnasium or the auditorium. It was in different classrooms. So you would walk from classroom to classroom looking at various other projects, sizing up yours compared to them. Did anybody have a really great idea or really bad idea? You could talk about it at the supper table that night. So Kyron specifically, and the stepmom are going from room to room, looking at the projects. Is that correct?
Yeah, from my understanding, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. I find that very significant because it's not a group of people in one gymnasium, one gym with all the projects and 50 people, 100 people seeing Kyron. He's walking from room to room, in and out. Everybody's milling around, looking. Parents are there from all over, looking at their children's science projects. It's easy to get lost in the shuffle. It's, you might as well be walking through Grand Central Station. There's a million kids running around. There's parents that don't really know each other. Who knows what happened? Who can really get a good grip on the last time Kyron is seen? It's not like he disappeared off the bus. He was there. He was there. Guys, what more do we know about that morning? Listen.
As Terry Horman leaves the school, she sees Kyron walking down a hallway toward his classroom inside Skyline Elementary. Kyron has already placed his book bag and coat in Miss Porter's classroom when he first arrived for the science fair. Miss Porter starts her class like every day, then the children move to reading group, then recess, then lunch. Around 3 p.m., the children, tired from a busy day, get on the bus to go home. Terry Horman and her stepson Kyron Horman arrive at the school science fair the morning of June 4, 2010. Stepmom claims she saw Kyron walk to his classroom, but teachers mark him absent, alleging the little boy never made it to class. Police commence an exhaustive search around a 2-mile radius of the school that includes a remote island along the Columbia River.
Welcome back. Where is Kyron? You think when you take your child to school, everything is safe and sound. Not in this case. Joining me an all-star panel, but straight back to Kyron's father, Kaine Horman, joining us. Kaine, what did stepmom Terry tell you about what happened?
Yeah, so it was we talked about the going to the room at the school, doing the photos, walking around the different rooms. I do recall, after thinking about it a little bit more, I think it was his first grade teacher that they saw in his room. And one of the interesting things about the school is there is an upstairs and a downstairs with classrooms, which I guess I didn't mention before. So she had talked about starting in the upstairs rooms and touring the science projects in those rooms, then going downstairs and viewing the projects there. And then, it's been a while. My memory may not be what it used to be, but for some reason, I remember her talking about them separating and meeting, because there's different stairwells to go back up to the upper level, where they went back up to the upper level and met near the office. And that's where they parted. And she saw or talked about him walking down the hallway back to his class. I don't recall her saying she saw him doing that, but they met there and then separated at that point in the school. It's kind of the office is kind of a central spot in the upstairs. And then she went and did some of her daily things that she had on her list from the school. So that was the last time that she had said that she had saw him, was in that central meeting place by the office.
And that's the teacher to whom you're referring?
The teacher, the name's escaping me at the moment. I apologize.
That's okay. I just want to make sure you're talking about the teacher says she saw him in that central area and she took off to go do all of her duties, right?
No, I don't recall a teacher saying that. That's what I was told by his stepmom, is that they met up there and separated there.
Gotcha. Now, I understand also, to Annette Newell joining us, KXL News, that at least one person saw stepmother Terry leaving the building. How do we know what time she left? Did she leave alone? Who is confirming that?
Actually, that information came from the mother of Kyron. She said that there were several witnesses who have told her that they did witness him leaving in a truck with the stepmother. So that's basically where that information came from.
Speaking of Kyron's mother, Desiree, listen.
The investigation continues to be on track and is progressing toward finding Kyron. We remain confident in the actions and constant commitment of law enforcement in the mission to find our son. We love you, Kyron. Never give up hope. We are all coming to get you, to bring you home.
Back to Kaine Horman. Kaine, did Terry ever mention to you leaving the school with Kyron?
No, not in any conversation that we had.
What do you know about potential witnesses that say they observed her leaving with him?
Personally, I have no firsthand account of anybody having seen him in the parking lot or her or them leaving together. I've heard a lot of secondhand information that there's a number of different accounts. There's accounts of people seeing all three of them leaving because my daughter was with her as well. There's accounts of seeing him by himself in the parking lot getting into vehicles. I've heard different kinds of vehicles, not just a truck. And I've heard other accounts of people witnessing her leaving the school by herself. I haven't heard any directly, so it's all secondhand information. I apologize, but I don't have any firsthand witness accounts that have been dictated to me personally in that instance. But it's been a little bit of everything, to be honest.
Nor do I. In fact, many reports state the stepmom leaves without him, that she's observed leaving without him. How many times, can I ask you, Kaine, did you go over it and over it and over it with stepmom Terry?
Many times, exhaustively. There was a lot of discussion that was occurring post the interaction with the folks at the school, and then with law enforcement, and it was pretty much a daily thing. Trying to walk through, who they saw, recount the steps, making sure that one of my biggest concerns was, did they actually meet up and part ways at the office? Didn't really ever get firsthand information that confirmed their parting at that location. So there was just a lot of conversation about trying to understand exactly what happened, where it happened, how it happened, and then including after as well. So there was a lot.
Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all of our content where we, in our own way, seek justice.
Kyron, who was 7 years old, disappeared from Skyline Elementary School in Northwest Portland.
From day one, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office has worked in close partnership with the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office, the FBI, and other agencies to find Kyron.
As parents, we can't imagine the pain and struggle Kyron's family has experienced and continues to experience without him.
And that's why we have never given up or slowed down in trying to find Kyron.
This was in retaliation for something that he was doing that I found out about while this is happening. And this particular person was actually his friend and sent to the house. So this was a setup.
Okay, yeah, a setup, retaliation. What is she even talking about? Listen to more of the stepmom speaking to our friend, Dr. Phil.
Well, that would be because the law enforcement told us to do things that we normally do. So they want you to go grocery shopping. They want you to go to the gym. They actually specifically told both Kaine and I, and he was with me that day when we went.
Okay. What she's talking about, could she possibly be talking about the X-rated photos she's sending a lover within just days after Kyron disappearing? I mean, Kaine, I don't know what you went through. I thought I knew everything about grief when my fiance was murdered. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I could barely speak. I couldn't stand to hear music or TV or radio or even the clock ticking. I would vomit and vomit. I couldn't keep anything on my stomach. The last thing I could have thought about is sending X-rated photos of myself to some guy. I mean, that's just not where your head is at a time like that.
My reaction, the first thing that I wanted to do was to cooperate with law enforcement as much as possible. And when I wasn't doing that, I was sitting in another room, staring at the floor and crying. For the first couple days, I think I slept for maybe 20 minutes the night that he went missing. We had a house full of law enforcement. One of the sheriff's officers that I had gotten to know over that period of time sat across from me in the room, and I think I might have nodded off for 20 minutes, maybe. Everything was do everything possible as fast as possible, whatever we needed to do. And it was just being ready and available to go through the process that they conduct through the investigation as much as we could. And like I said, when I wasn't doing that, I was basically sitting there crying for the first, and that was the first few days. It was, the grief was overwhelming. And at the same time, like we talked about in the ride up to the school, my brain was just frantically trying to figure out, what could we possibly be doing? Is this real? It still just really hadn't sunk in all the way, but it had at the same time. I don't know if that makes any sense, but just mulling over everything. But yeah, I don't remember sleeping that much for the first week, if not longer. Because we were in the middle of the investigation. We were being investigated, and all the interviews and everything else that we were trying to get through. I mean, I was not on social media at all that I recall. I don't even recall cracking a laptop. I don't remember being on my phone. I just remember working with the team as much as humanly possible to make progress on finding him. So the things that you're describing to me, completely foreign to me at that time, and still. Sorry, I don't know how else to answer. It was a very intense period of time. I have no idea how anyone would be in that mindset.
Terry alleges she drove along country roads to soothe daughter Kiara's earache the morning of Kyron's disappearance. Terry's friend Dee Dee allegedly rushes out of work at the same time as Terry's drive after receiving a mysterious phone call. Her whereabouts during this time are unknown. Witnesses at the school report an unidentified man in a white pickup truck at the science fair, but his identity remains a mystery.
Guys, there's so much misdirection going on right here. So much misdirection. To Annette Newell joining us, KXL News host. Annette, again, thank you for being with us. That parking lot was likely full of parents leaving the science fair. But you are telling me evidence has emerged of at least one witness seeing the stepmother leaving with Kyron. Is that correct?
They were seen out in front of the school by one of Kyron's friends, his grandma and sister, as well as his bus driver. They were walking out to the main road, which is where the truck was parked. That witnesses saw Terry and Kyron leaving the school together that morning and heading toward their truck. According to Kaine, also, Terry said that she drove around town that day, stopping at the 2 grocery stores to get medicine for her daughter, who wasn't feeling well. Then police found that Terry's phone pinged around Highway 30 north of Portland in that time period.
Now, you're telling me that she, in the vehicle, in the truck, was spotted at not one, but at least 2 grocery stores. Could the video be highlighted, enhanced, to see if Kyron was in the car at that time?
That's something that they tried to do a bunch of times, and they couldn't conclusively tell whether he was in the car or not.
Annette Newell joining us, KXL. Annette, that video depicting the stepmother going to at least 2 grocery stores, was that immediately upon her leaving the school?
Yeah, they do think it fit the timeline of what she was talking about, although there was some other time that they weren't sure if they could definitely connect what she was saying she did versus what she did. But they did find that there was some video of her from surveillance cameras in that area that did show her and show her in the truck.
Right. Question, you mentioned the pinging of her cell phone. Explain to me where her cell phone pinged.
Yeah, it was an area north Portland, not far from the school, around Highway 30, which runs north of Portland. And that was after she'd spent time driving her daughter around. She said she was driving in that area to settle her daughter down, is what she told police when they asked why the phone was pinging around in that area.
To Kaine Horman, this is Kyron's dad. When you asked her what had happened that morning, did she describe this circuitous route driving around with the daughter in the car to help her earache?
Yes, she did. She talked about the retailers she stopped at. I want to say there was a gym stop. Again, I don't recall. It's been a while. But she did outline that. She outlined a few of the country roads that they were driving on. She wasn't overly specific about which ones. There was a few she talked about, but after that, it was just driving around. But yeah, I was familiar with that kind of timetable.
The 14-year investigation has turned up no clues as to little Kyron's whereabouts, but family and investigators suspect this was no accident. Stepmom Terry maintains her innocence as the Horman family continues their desperate search for answers.
We know the stepmother has never been formally charged in Kyron Horman's disappearance. She has become the target of public suspicion, but there seems to be a chain of alleged misconduct, really, since the moment Kyron goes missing. I also understand that Terry Lynn Moulton, formerly Terry Horman, faced grand theft firearm charges stemming from an incident in Marysville, California regarding a stolen gun. It's just like one thing after the next. And again, she's never been named a suspect, a formal suspect in the disappearance of Kyron. You know, Kaine, you earlier mentioned that you and the whole family were being investigated. That's SOP, standard operating procedure. When someone goes missing, the first place police look, as they should, is at the family members, particularly the male members. Statistically, that's typically who did it. Tell me about being the target of an investigation yourself while your son is missing. What was that like?
The only way I can describe it is it was something that that I needed to do. I knew I didn't have any involvement. I knew that really at that point it wasn't about me. Is really all I can say. Is about him, and I did everything I was asked to do as fast and quickly and urgently as possible to clear myself in the investigation, because I wanted them to be focused on who did it. So it was. I don't know, I set aside, there was not really a lot of emotions from me on that front, other than they indicated the process and my job was to clear the process. And that's absolutely what I wanted to do. And again, as urgently as possible, the focus was on him, finding him as quickly as possible. It really didn't have to do with me as far as how I felt about what was happening. It was just what I needed to do as his parent to help him get recovered as early as possible. So it was basically my mission to do every and anything asked to clear that process and continue to move forward. So it was a lot less about emotion at that point. I know I described the first couple, like 24 to 48 hours, just being kind of unresponsive unless I was being interviewed with investigators, crying and all that stuff. And as we started to get further into the process, I kind of had to set that aside and become more focused on what needed to be done, the tasks that needed to be done, and not being emotional about how I felt at that particular point in time. I missed him. I was frantic, but at the same time, I needed them to focus on who actually did this. So it was about clearing. It was 100% just about clearing everything that I needed to clear so we could stay focused on him.
I don't even know words to describe what I think you've been through. But tonight, now, what is your message to anybody out there that may know anything about Kyron?
Well, first and foremost, Kyron, if you're still out there, we're still looking for you. So I will always lead with that. No one's given up. We are still looking. We haven't given up. We love you. We miss you. We are still active. The investigation's active. We're still looking. To everyone out there, keep reporting tips. We have tips coming in through the phone still to this day. Lots on email. There's a website that I'm sure that you guys will have the information for, that the sheriff's office has put up now, in addition to the one that we've put up for the past 14 years. They recently put up a new one that gives a rough timeline, gives the tip line, it gives an email tip line. Would encourage everyone to submit tips, no matter how big or small you think they are. Try not to rule them out, try not to filter them, just submit them, and the investigators will do that work. But urge anybody who feels that they witnessed anything, no matter how long ago it was, to submit that information through the tip line. And again, don't try to filter it out. Don't try to vet it for yourself. Pass it along. So I would highly encourage that. The other thing is there are age progressed photos on the website. There's, I think, the original and 3 others. He's not 7 anymore. And so that's one thing that we try to remind folks, is that he's older. He may or may not have his glasses right now as well. So if he is still alive and he is out there with somebody, we're trying to get people familiarized with those age progressed with and without the glasses. So if they do see a similarity, that they call in that tip as well. But the tip line, both the phone and the email are open. They're still actively getting tips. Please continue to submit them as much as you can.
We're showing those age-progressed photos from our friends at National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We believe this is what Kyron would look like today. You can, of course, call NICMA or 1-800-THE-LOST. 1-800-THE-LOST. There is a $50,000 reward for information leading to the resolution of Kyron's disappearance. A $50,000 reward. We stop now and remember an American hero, Deputy Sheriff Caleb Conley, Georgetown, Kentucky, just 35, killed in the line of duty, May 22, 23. A U.S. Army vet, survived by wife Rachel, son Riley, and daughter Olivia, grieving for their husband and dad. American hero, Deputy Sheriff Caleb Conley. Thank you to all of our guests for being with us, especially Kyron's dad, Kaine. Thank you for being with us, and to our MSM family, joining us in the search for Kyron Horman. Nancy Grace signing off. I'll see you tomorrow night, 6 and 9 o'clock sharp Eastern, and until then, good night, friend. Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app, where you can get all of our content, where we, in our own way, seek justice.